What I'm going to recite is a speech by President Warren G. Harding on the 26th day of October 1921. He was talking about the centennial founding of the city of Birmingham, Alabama. Let me go ahead and cite this. Mr. Mayor, citizens of Birmingham, and people of the South. I have been wondering, as we have seen Birmingham district and the marvels of this region's industrial development, whether any of us have yet realized the significance of the fact that Birmingham has been called the Magic City. The basic characteristic industry on which modern civilization rests is iron and steel, and Birmingham is the world's last word in the development of the iron and steel industries. We have come here to pay tribute to the marvelous achievements of a brief half century to which this city and its industries stand as a monument. They testify to us how far the South has progressed in a single generation, the generation since slavery was abolished, and the rule of free labor and unfettered industrial opportunity became the rule of all of our great republic. Somewhere my attention has been called to the legend, possibly a historical fact, that when Fernando de Solo was leading his expedition of exploration in the conquest from Florida to Mississippi, some of his metal workers not only discovered the wonderful deposits of coal, limestone, and iron ore in this area, and told De Soto that here was an even greater treasure house than that which he was seeking. Not a the labro of precious metals, but the opportunity of making the world's dominating iron industry. I have been told, I do not know whether it's literally true, that the first reduction of iron in this district was actually accomplished by the members of the DeSoto party who supplied the current of the expedition needs of smeltering some of these wonderful ores. But DeSoto was led on by the mirage that filled his vision, and instead of the pot of gold he sought, he found he found the mighty Mississippi, and in it his grave. So far as concerns more modern development, it appears that the great Andrew Jackson, who utilized your material and metal riches, when he was on his march to New Orleans for the great battle in which many yeomanry of the South won the great noble land victory of the War 1812, his um, Lingus discovered that from these easily smelt ores you could supply their requirements of iron, and of which they stood in great need. According to, they erect rude furnaces and reduce considerable quantities of iron, and from time on there it appears to have more than less sporadic and intimate um, intermittent utilization of these deposits. And during the Civil War, they provided a considerable part of the needs of the South. In this connection, and I have in many times wished that there were there might be a wider appreciation of energy, resourcefulness, and the genius for industrial development, which the people of the South demonstrated during that war. Necessarily an aristocratic agricultural region, the South suddenly confront the need to turn out iron and steel and a vast complexity of their products, which were absolutely vital to the conduct of the war. Not only did they arise to the occasion, and they gave what I regard as one of the greatest demonstrations in all history of the possibilities of adaptation, organization, and the industrial development under the stress of great necessities. We will do well to recognize that the industrial achievement of the South during the Civil War was one of the marvels resulting from that unhappy conflict that marked the beginning of that diversification of the industry, which made the South of today an industrial as well as an agricultural empire. Now, I have often wished that some expired son of the South might one day devote that time and effort to necessary to record the history of that Latin-like industrial wonder, which was a large part of the story of the South in the civil contest, which is one of the phrases of the American history that has too little understanding attention. When we have studied the Civil War, it has been so engrossed with the little understanding attention that we have studied the Civil War. Oh, I'm sorry. We have studied the Civil War. We have been engrossed with military and political aspects that we have cited the industrial and economic phrases. I'm not. I am going to venture, therefore, the suggestion that a comprehensive study of that aspect of the war period would be um, insurmountable of value to the South and to the great story of our national progress. Not only it constitute an elegant testimony to the genius and um, devote devotion of our Southern people, but it would present a picture of an open opportunity and widening horizons that those who come temptation would challenge. And I'm apologizing for mispronouncing that word. That would challenge every remaining vestige of prejudice and secular antagonism. It has been a truism between the that the war between the states started the nation as a whole in the way of colossal industrial growth. But I have wished that the particular story of that wartime experience in the South might be better known. I have been told that of the almost overnight development of munition factories out of smithereens, of the expansion of railroad repairs shops into locomotive works, how shipyards or ordnance plants, powder factories, and the were conjured. conjured up and put to work almost in a twinkling of an eye of impoverished industrial processes and mechanical conveniences, not of a few which might have been of permanent value, some of them fairly revolutionary, we will, I am sure, be forgiven if, as Americans, we remind ourselves that wooden navies have fought each other for thousands of years until America felt to fight, fell to fighting among themselves. Then came iron fighting craft, came so quickly and ununanimously that both sides had their first iron warships ready at the same moment. So well matched that they fought to a draw. It was a revolution, yet it was the only incident in this matching of American genius and the resourcefulness in titanic struggle. The railroad and the telegraph was the first bidding in the service of war. On a great scale during our civil contest, the huge ordinances, which both North and South created and used was as sensational in that day as most startling uh, constructions of the war were more than a generation later. In the South and North, our people learned and demonstrated what it means to to mobilize all human, industrial, financial, scientific resources of a great community for purposes of war. That indeed was the most characteristic and most revolutionary development of the struggle. But when we have done with our war, we have well nigh made over the whole art of war. Old things were gone forever. By land or by sea, both its materials and methods were sweepingly changing. The glory and glamour of have been taken out of it, and in their place have been put a grim, hard reality of a whole people measuring against each other their last ounce of power and resources. In that contest of industry and resources, the South started with their fearful handicap, a handicap so great that its accomplishments constitute one of the industrial wonders of its time, of all time. And it to this day wonder that I would want to call attention to today. For I have felt that it has never been appraised as it ought to be. From that contest, the South emerged not only with foundational the foundation of industrial greatness securely laid, but freed from the hubris, um, not hubris, the incubus of labor of a labor system that had from colonial times chained to it the status of almost purely agricultural community. The industrial and commercial development of states and peoples have always been strikingly influenced by their wars, and perhaps even more than their social and political development. That the older war founded an industry in the South under the stress of sternest necessity. And so we may recognize in your Birmingham district and its industrial splendor of the fine products of the Industrial Revolution, which was forced upon the whole South. We are gathered today to celebrate the cementation of the founding of Birmingham. That this wonder could be ought to be so brief. A time tells it so fast. Our modern world moves so fast that we are wont to forgot our yesterdays before our todays are fairly begun. So absorbing in its concerns of the present that too far often that we neither had the time nor the interest for the morrow. And yet there was never the time we need so much to study our past and in the light of his lessons give earnest thought to the tomorrows. So that we thought that here in the in your magic city whose story seems very compressed of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It may be proper to suggest a few thoughts regarding the critical times which are forced upon our country and the countries in all countries and some of the issues which command our consideration. Exhausted and frightened by the horrors of the war. Nations are seeking the means to prevent repetitive repeat of our experience. Excuse me. We see the need of effective reform in international relationships, and among with this, and for all alterations and and adaptations of domestic institutions, and which will better fit them for the new time. Our own country, though its necessities are less erroneous, uh, its difficulties not so egregious and as those as many others, yet has yet occasion to consider wherein it may better methods adjust itself to the new relationships, equip itself for the new sort of struggle that lies ahead. Concerning one of its national problem, I want to say a few words. If the Civil War marked the beginnings of the industrialization of the South, which previously been entirely agricultural, the war brought us to a full recognition that the race problem is a national rather than a merely sectational. There are no art, there are no articulate statistics, but it is common knowledge that the war was marked by a great migration of colored people to the north and the west. They were attracted by the demand for labor and higher wages offered. The slow movement that have been progress for decades before, but has but was vastly accelerated because of the war, and has continued only a shackle pace since. But it has brought a question of race closer to North and West. And I believe it has served to modify whatever the views of those sections on this question. It has made the South realize that its industrial dependence on the labor of the black man and made the North realize the difficulties of the community in which both greatly differing races are brought to live side by side. I should say that it has been responsible for a larger charity on both sides, a beginning of better understanding, and in the light of that better understanding, perhaps we shall be able to consider this problem together as a problem of all sections and of both races, which in Hughes, whose solution, the best intelligence of both must be enlisted. Indeed, we will be wise to recognize it as wider yet. Whoever will take the time to read and ponder Mr. Lupidoff Scorbunov's book on the rising tide of color, or should I say, the thoughtful review of some of the recent literature of this question, in which Mr. F.D. Lingard Lugard presented in a recent Eckenberg review, that most men realize that our race problem here in the United States is only a phrase of a race issue that the whole world confronts. And surely we shall gain nothing by blinking the fact, by refusing to give a thought to them. It is not the American way of approaching such issues. In the other way, the World War modified the the elements of this problem. Thousands of black men serving their country just as patriotically as did the white men were transported overseas, experienced the life of countries where their color aroused less of antagonism than it does here. Many of them aspired to go to Europe and live. A high graded color soldier told me that the war brought his race to the first real conception of citizenship, the first full realization that the flag was their flag, and to fight for and to protect by them, and was also protect them. But he was sure that the opportunity to learn patriotism meant that was a real opportunity to his race. These these things led one to hope that we should find an adjustment of relations between the two races, in which both can enjoy full citizenship, full measure of usefulness to the country, and of opportunity for themselves, and which recognition and reward shall be distributed in a portation to the individual desires, regardless of race or color. Mr. Lugard, in his recent essay, after surveying the world's problem of race, concludes that here then is the true conception of the um interrelation of color: complete uniformity in ideas, absolute equality in the paths of knowledge, culture, equal opportunity for those who strive, equal admiration for those who achieve. In matters social and racial, a separate path, which pursuing his own inherent traditions, preserving his own race purity and racial pride, equality in things spiritually, agreed divergence in the physical and material. Here, here it seems to me is suggestion of the true way out. Politically and economically, there need to be no occasion for great and permanent differentiation, for the limitations of the individual's opportunity, provided that on both sides there shall be recognition of the absolute divergence in things social and racial. When I suggest the possibility of economic equality between the races, I meant it in precisely the same way, and to the exact that I would mean if I spoke of equality of economic opportunity, as members of the same race. In each case, I would mean equality to the honest capabilities and desires of the individual. Men of both races may stand uncompromisingly against every suggestion of social equality. Indeed, it would be helpful that to have that word equality eliminated from this consideration. But to have it accepted on both sides, it is not a question of racial equality, social equality, but the question of recognizing the fundamental, internal, and inescapable difference. Now we shall have real progress when we develop an attitude in the public and community thoughts of both races who recognize this their difference. Colonizing countries everywhere have recent times have been more and more dealing with the problem from this point of view. The British Commonwealth of Nations race races confronts it and has been seeking its solution among the lines here suggested. But there is a possibility of learning something acceptable to our own country from the British. It is true that there is a great difference between bringing um, into your own land colonists of another race, going out to another land and subjecting them and its people to the rule of an alien race. Yet the two cases have many elements of similarities that it seems to me the experience of each must furnish its own light upon the other. Take the first political aspect. I would say let the black man vote when he is fit to vote. Prohibit the white man voting when he's unfit to vote. Especially would I appeal to the self-respect of the colored race. Now I would I would wish to improve itself the distinct race with a heritage to the set of traditions, an array of aspirations all its own. Out of such racial ambition and pride will come national segregations without the narrowing any rights, such as the proceeding in both rural and urban communities now in the southern states, satisfying the national inclinations um, and adding the nobility to the happiness and contentment. On the other hand, I would insist upon equal educational opportunity for both. But this does not mean, though, that both would become equally educated within a generation or two generations or 10 generations. Even men of the same race do not accomplish such equality as that. They never will. And the providence that endowed men with with the wildly unequal capabilities and the energies that did not attend any such thing. But there must be such education among the colored people as enabled them to develop their own leaders capable of understanding and synthesizing with such differentiation between the races as I suggested. Leaders who will inspire the race with proper ideas of race pride and national pride and of honorable destiny. Any important um, universal effort for the achievement of humanity as a whole. Racial amalgamation there cannot be. Partnership of the races in developing the highest aims of all humanity. There must be if humanity, not only here but everywhere, is to achieve the ends which we have set forward. Now I'll say to you, the people of the South, black, and white. That time has passed when you are entitled to assume that this problem of races is particularly your problem. More and more, it has become the problem of the North. More and more, it's the problem of Africa, South America, of the Pacific, and of the South Seas of the world. And it is a problem of democracy everywhere if we meant the thing that we say about democracy as an ideal political state. Coming as an American, due from the many origins of race, traditions, language, color, institutions, heredity, engage as we are in huge effort to work an honorable national destiny from so many different elements. The one thing we must avoid is the development of group and class organizations in this country. Now, there was a time that when we heard too much of the labor vote, the business vote, the Irish vote, the Scandinavian vote, the Italian vote, and so forth. But the demagogues, which would array class against class and group against group, have fortunately found little to reward their efforts. That is because, despite the demagogues, the idea of our oneness as Americans has risen superior to every appeal to mere class and group. And so I would wish that it might be this in the order of our natural natural problems of race. I would assent that a black man cannot be a white man, and he does not need or should aspire to be as such as a white man as possible in order to accomplish the best that is possible for him. He should seek to be and should be encouraged to be the best possible black man, and that the best possible imitation of a white man, not the best possible imitation of a white man. It is a matter of the keenest national concern that the South shall not be encouraged to make its colored population the vast reservoir of ignorance to be drained away by the process of migration into other sections. That is what was going on in the recent years at the rate it accumulated, that it has caused this question of race to be, as I've already said, n- no longer one of particular secession. Just as I do not wish the South to be politically entirely of one party, just as I believe that it is bad for the South and the rest of the nation as well, I do not wish to want the colored people to be entirely of one party. I wish that both traditions of solidly Democratic South and the traditionally of the solidly Republican black race might be broken up. Neither political secularization nor any system of a solidly, I'm sorry, of the system of the rigid groupings of the people will be the long run prosper our nation. I want to see the time when black men will regard themselves as full participants in the benefits and duties of the American citizenry when they will vote for Democratic candidates. If they prefer the Democratic policy on tariffs or taxation or foreign relations or whatnot, when they will vote for the Republican ticket only for the like reasons. Now we can go on and as we gone for more than half a century with one great section of our population numbering as many as the entire population of some significant countries of Europe, set off from the real contributions to solving our national issues because of the differences of the divisions rather on racial lines. With such convictions, one must urge the people of the South to take advantage of their superior understanding of this problem and to assume an attitude toward that it will deserve confidence of the colored people. Likewise, I plead with my own political party to lay aside every program that looks like lining up the black man as a mere political adjunct. Let there be an end to prejudice and demagoguery in this line. Let the South understand the menace among which lies forcing upon the black race an attitude of political solidarity. The greater hope and the disbursement of hatred, the discouragement of the dangerous passions lie in the pursuance in the pursuing hope. Oh, I'm sorry, pursuing the black people to forget old prejudice and to have them believe that under the rule of whatever political party they would be treated just as other people are treated, guaranteed all the rights that the people of other colors enjoy, and made, in short, regard themselves as citizens of a country and not of a particular race. Every consideration, it seems to me, bring back at last the question of education. When I speak of education as part of this race question, I don't want the states or the nation to attempt to educate people, whether black or white, into something they're not fitted to be. I have no sympathy with some half-baked asteriums that overshocked us with doctors and lawyers of whatever color and leave us in the need of people who fit, willing to do the manual work of a workday world. But I would like to see an education that will fit every man, not only to do his particular work as well as possible, but rise in a higher plane if he would desire it. Now, for that sort of education, I have no fears. Whether given to a black man or a white man, from that sort of education, I believe black men, white men, and the whole country would draw insurmountable benefit. It is possible that as a nation, we will come to an end of a period of rapid increase in our population. Recent recent legislation to restrict immigration will be a part responsible for the slacking ratio of increase. The new immigrants have multiplied in numbers, which more rapidly, but as immigrants become Americanized and aggregated into the citizenry, the tendency that has been toward less rapid multiplication. So such restricted immigration will reduce the size of increase, I'm sorry, reduce the rate of increase and force us back upon our older population defined people to do simpler, physical, harder manual tasks. This will require some difficult readjustments, and it has been easy indeed, but it has not been good for the people of our older stock. That a constant inflow of immigration made it possible to crowd off these less attractive and profitable tasks upon newcomers. Now, I don't think it has been good for the old Latins called the natural virtue. That is a word I always liked and employed in the Roman sense. But I wish we might have adopted into our vocabulary. In this sense, it strikes me as a good deal better than morale. However, we are under necessary to raise honest, hard manual work to a new dignity if we are to get it done. We have to make its compensations more generous, materially, and, if I may say it, spiritually, to make usefulness of service rather than the spottiness of hands. The test of whatever social recognition of recognition depends on the individual's occupation. I confess a large disgust with such all classifications, and I earnestly uh, bespeak an attitude uh, toward good, honorable, hard work that will end them. I do not want to coddle or patronize labor. I want us all to get out and put on a blue denims and roll up our sleeves and let our hands be honorable soiled and do the work. That's what we got to do. And if we are to get on, we must do it and be glad we can. And for there is small chance that we will ever have again has armies of laborers landing on the shores. Have them come in the past. In the in the antipathization of such condition, the South may may well recognize that the North and the West are likely to continue to drafts among its colored population. And if the South wishes to keep its fields producing and its industry still expanding, it will have compete for the services of the colored man, and it realize and it oh, excuse me, if it will realize its needs for him and deal quite fairly with him, the South will be able to keep him in such numbers as your activities make desirable. At any rate, here is the problem, and it's pressing for settlement. It is not possible then, and that in a long era of readjustment upon which we are entering for the nation to lay aside old prejudices, old antagonisms, and in a broad, clear light of nationalism, entered upon a constructive policy dealing with these with these issues. Just as we prove ourselves capable of doing this, we shall ensure the industrial process, the agricultural security, the social and political safety of our whole country, regardless of race or sections, and among the ideal superiority to every considerations of groups or class or race or color or sections or prejudice. But here is the reflux of the magical industrial development. Here are the fruits in the making of a nation and its commitment to free productivity and trade. There is a materialism that sometimes seems uh so did, but on the material foundations that we expanded in soul, and we have seen this republic, the example to freedom expiring throughout the world. We wish to cling to all that is good. We want to preserve the inheritance over which we have fought because our conflict made it more precious. But I but we wish to go on as well as preserve. The march of a great people is not a blind one. We can be unmindful of human achievement. We wish to be more a space with progress. We wish that our American leading in choosing safe paths. 50 years is a narrow span. Yet the marvel of Birmingham is less than a marvel of our astonishing America. And we need mean to go on. And if we are just and honest in administrating justice, and we are alive to perils and meet them in conscience and in courage, the achievement of our first half century will be magnified tenfold in the second half, and in the glory of your city and in our country will be reflected in the happiness of a great people, greater than we dream, grander than understanding, in the courage